Hello and welcome to episode 385 of the Daily Sales Message Podcast, where every single day I share a piece of simple and actionable advice that's designed to help you feel more confident and sell more stuff too. In today's episode, we're talking about sales process. Most people know what a sales process is, and they have one, or they know they shouldn't have one, but a sales process of simple set of steps for how you sell to somebody. You've got to prospect them, ask them stuff, qualify them, etc. Have meetings and calls and onboarding and this and that. It's the steps of how you sell to them. What I'd like to challenge your thinking with today is a buying process. And the buying process is from the POV, the point of view of your buyer. What are they considering when they're buying? Because the buying process precedes the selling process, if that makes sense. So from your buyer's point of view, their process begins when they notice a problem. They notice a trigger point, an issue, a problem. This is a problem. What are we going to do about it? Then from there, you don't have to shake your head, but there we go. Then from there, they'll do their research. Either they'll know what the solution is, or they'll have to start looking for the solution. And when I say solution, I'll give you a banal example, but it kind of makes sense. If I want to serve really nice, posh coffee in my house, my friends are coming over. So the problem is I don't have posh coffee. I've only got instant coffee. Want to serve something nice and posh to impress my friends. Yep, both of them. There's two things I can do. The first one is I can just get a really expensive jar of lovely coffee, maybe. Actually, there's a couple really. There's just regular, like, posh instant coffee. I could do filter coffee, so just have a little filter there, put it in, etc. I could do cafetiere coffee, or I could do one of those coffee pod machines, or I could have an actual, like, full-on £1 million espresso machine. I'm sure not £1 million, but very expensive espresso machine like they do in the baristas have in Cafe Nero, etc. So actually, there's quite a few different options I've got there. At one point, I'm going to say, hey, do you know what? I think the cafetiere is the route I'm going to go for. So now I'm in the cafetiere marketplace, and I'm looking at the cafetiere suppliers. And that's where I may or may not find you, and you're trying to then differentiate against the competition. But notice how the thought process for your buyer is, I have the problem, how do I solve it, and then who? How do I solve it? Who will solve it? A lot of people miss this. A lot of people in the cafetiere marketplace, is a banal example, a lot of people in the cafetiere marketplace just think they're competing against the other cafetiere people. This is why our cafetiere is better than all the other ones. Well, that's kind of valid, but you also have to have, why is your cafetiere better than filter coffee, the super duper coffee machine, expensive instant coffee, etc.? So the takeaway I want you to have today, after you have a cup of coffee, because I've had coffee about 1 million times, so now I want a cup of coffee, is are you, and do you position your offering versus the other alternatives? So we have cafetiere versus other cafetieres, but we've got cafetiere versus coffee machine, cafetiere versus filter coffee, expensive coffee, etc. Are you too focused on you versus the other cafetieres, or do you take into consideration the other things that your buyer might be looking at in their buying process? So a buying process is where the buyer decides how they're going to solve it, and who is going to help them. Then they'll fall into your sales process of qualification, etc. But you've got to get them there first of all. Hopefully that made sense. Right, I'm off now for a coffee. Tomorrow, in episode 386, we are going to talk about lack of usage. If you don't use something enough, something I want you to do about that with your clients. But I'll explain more about that in tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, if you haven't already, please hop on over to LinkedIn. You'll find me there, James Newell. Connect with me. Send me a DM. Let me know what you like about the podcast, anything you'd like to cover in a future episode. And maybe one day soon, I'll have an episode dedicated to you answering your very specific sales question. Thanks for listening and watching all the way to the end as I lose a little bit more of my mind. I'll catch you tomorrow for a less coffee-related edition of the Daily Sales Message.